we've made our frames, put our brass eyelets in, we've made our frames, we wired them, and now the only step we have left to do is to actually put the foundation in, to embed that in. So this step will show you that. First, before I do that real quick, here's some equipment that you'll need. You can use just a spur embedder, and all this does is run along the wire to sink it down into the wax. Better than that is an electric embedder, and what this does is just run a current along the wire, and you only want to do it for a second or two. It runs a current along the wire, and it embeds itself, it melts the wax and it embeds itself in there. Just keep in mind that when you use one of these, you will need a spur embedder as well. You have to use it in concert. And then you have a just a foundation board. You can get these from almost any bee supplier. Once you decide where you're buying your frames and your foundation from, I would always buy frames and foundation from the same company. Once you decide on that, then you should buy the embedder board from them, not from someone else. This is all Walter T. Kelly right here, this stuff. I've been using Walter T. Kelly for probably 20 of my 21 years of beekeeping. So to embed the foundation, I'm going to do this sitting down. I would normally kind of stand up actually for this, but in order to stay in the field of vision for the camera, and I've found that this is the best view, it seems, because otherwise your arms just get in the way. But the first thing that you do is you check the foundation. Now, theoretically, these wires would be right in the middle of the sheet of foundation, but in reality they're not. There's always one side that the wires are closer to the edge of the foundation, to the surface of the foundation, than the other. And so what you do is you look at it at an angle, and you'll see the sheen of the wires through one side more than the other. This one is pretty close, and each sheet will be different, but it looks to me like this side I can't actually see the wires, so there's plenty of wax for me to embed it. Then you just set it on your frame, and the easiest way to do it, these are grooved top bars and grooved bottom bars, and I'll explain in a second how they can be different, but you just set it in one groove, and then you slightly bend the foundation. Don't do this any colder than, say, 60 degrees, because your foundation can crack away from the wires, but you just slightly bend it and then stick it in the groove. It's in there, it's quick and easy. And then what you do is flip it over, set it on your embedder here, and center it just a little bit different. Apologize, Marley's running around right beside me. So then you take your electric embedder and you place it on your wire. Make sure you get a good view. And then what you're going to do is you're going to apply very slight pressure. What you want to do is apply the current and let the weight of this embedder sink the current down. Sink the wire down into the foundation. So you just barely hit it for a second or two. I roll it just a little bit. It seems like it helps it a little bit, but you just want you want very light pressure. If you give too much pressure, what happens? Oh, and after you release the current, by the way, give it a second or two for the wax to re-solidify. But what happens if you put too much pressure is the wire gets bowed between these 2 points, and it doesn't embed. So you just want very even, slight pressure on all of these. Sometimes the frame can be away from the board, so sometimes what I'll do in addition to that is I'll push down on the frame with my hand and then apply gentle pressure to the embedder. Sometimes the contact isn't too good with the embedder as well. And wax does get built up on it that you have to clean off periodically. But that's all you do, and now basically your frame is done. But one last thing you want to do is check and see. You turn it over and look and see. You can see where the wire was fully embedded, those dark lines, and then it didn't embed quite as well here, but it did embed. and then etc. You can see it was almost fully, this wire is completely good, that one's completely good. And in any spots that, you know, weren't to your satisfaction, there's a check that you can do. So what you do is you just move the foundation slightly with your thumb and your finger on the other side. You just move it back and forth, and if the wire doesn't move with the foundation, then it's not embedded properly. And this was the spot that was a little loose. Now see that the wire is actually coming up just a little tiny bit, and it's only for about 3 inches. But what you do then is set it down and you just roll your spur embedder on it, and it'll embed it down in there. You don't want much pressure on the spur embedder, because what you don't want to do is send that wire all the way through the foundation. It'll cut the foundation in between the two vertical wires here. And then, you know, you place it on the beehive, and the heat from the beehive actually makes them warp a little bit. So I wanted to show you what the wires, this is almost a perfectly embedded wire right here. You can see how the wax just melted right over the wire. I'm going to try to move this. It's a pretty shallow depth of field. But you can see how it melted just right over the wires. And then down here you get somewhat, you know, it's fairly typical, but you can see how the wire's sticking out of at each cell, and it just melted, you know, the walls of each cell over there. There it went pretty good. That's where one of the wire embedder little things was. And then over here you can see more of the same. And then that's fine too. That's all you need, really. So sometimes, you know, this is why you have to use a spur embedder and an electric embedder in concert, is because sometimes, whether it's just a variation in the vertical wires, or if, you know, which isn't the case here, but whether it's that, or the foundation's just bent a little bit, or for whatever reason, it doesn't really, the wire doesn't sink down into the foundation as well. So I always use a spur embedder to do that. And you can see the close-up here of the spur embedder, where it's, you know, this is a very small spur embedder, but you can see the grooves, and you can see how it went down into the foundation, and then the foundation came back over it a little bit, and that's what holds it in. But you can see the difference between having you know, a whole bead of wax over the wire versus just this spur embedder. So, you know, a spur embedder is something they used for, you know, many years, and it worked just fine. I prefer the electric, but like I say, the electric isn't perfect in all situations. If you forget to check the foundation and see which side is the deep side, then it's harder to get that wire all the way down deep up against the vertical wire like we have here. We have it pretty deep,